Hello and welcome to Big Weekend here on the Football365 show, brought to you by Paddy Power. I'm your host Mark Smith. I'm here as ever with Editor-in-Chief of Football365.com, Sarah Winterburn. Lots to talk about. We're going to discuss whether Liverpool are completely finished as a professional football club or whether it's just a bit of a flash in the pan run of bad performances. Probably the latter. If you like the show, don't forget to like and subscribe and also press the notification bell so you never miss a show ever again going forward. This is Big Weekend, brought to you by Paddy Power. Right, Sarah, let's start then. Leicester versus Liverpool. Roy Keane called Liverpool bad champions. Has he got a point?
Roy Keane, he'd probably tell you he had no idea what the word viral meant or what the word clickbait meant, but he knows exactly what he's doing, doesn't he? When he says something like
he's a
bad
master.
Champions, he knows that's the headline on every website an hour after he said it, and it absolutely was. Are they bad champions? I think that's a bit inflammatory from Keane, and he knows he's doing that. I think what they have done is made a pretty bad job of defending the title. They're not the first to do that, and they won't be the last. You know, they've had two incredibly good seasons in which in any other era would have won them 2 titles. Now, there's a reason why winning 3 is so rare. You know, there's only been 4 clubs that have done it: Man United, Liverpool, Arsenal, Huddersfield Town, obviously. You know, it takes a rare and beautiful beast to win 3 in a row, and you were basically asking Liverpool to do that, even though they didn't win that first title. And I can't remember who said it. Who said that managing a football club is like repairing a plane while it's in the air? And I think that's, you know, Liverpool are trying to do that, and parts are falling off it, aren't they? That's the problem we've got here. We expected a drop off from Liverpool because of the defensive situation. What we didn't expect,
but not to this extent.
No, we didn't expect that as soon as that Anfield record went, it would go spectacularly, and that anybody who trucked up at Anfield could now win. You know, they've gone from being impregnable there to being pregnable. They're an incredibly pregnable side right now, and so anyone coming up against a pregnable side will fancy their chances, and Leicester certainly will on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely. Leicester are going to be licking their lips at how pregnable Liverpool have become. I'm going to go as part of my Paddy Power 4-way accumulator of both teams to score here. Liverpool can't really defend. Leicester are one of the show's favourite teams, aren't they? I think they're going to do something. I don't know what it will be. They'll do something. Something will happen. That's all you need to know. Let's move on. Something will happen. Let's move on because as bad as Liverpool were against Man City were fantastic. They're back to their old, maybe not their old absolute top level 2 years ago performance levels, but certainly probably that second half the best we've seen of any team so far this season.
Yeah, I'd say so. Like I say, they're not as frightening as they were 2 or 3 seasons ago, but then they don't really need to be in this season. They're exactly as good as they need to be to walk away with this title. You know, the first half against Liverpool wasn't great, and then they seemed to feel their way into it a little bit, but then as soon as they realised that Liverpool were pregnable
okay.
They opened their legs and they went for it, and you know that performance from Phil Foden was absolutely brilliant, but it was coming. You know, Bernardo Silva's coming into some form. That team they took their while to get into this season, and now they don't look like they can be bullied. And Spurs will try to bully them on the weekend. Spurs will try to be more physical. They will be bigger, physically bigger. They will try and, you know, they'll have no space to operate at all. But thankfully, you know, a City team that doesn't look great, struggles with that kind of setup. They sort of look a little bit lost and they do a lot of passing back and forwards and it never really gets anywhere. But the City side that's getting into their stride relishes that and thinks, oh, what, you want to put 9 players between us and the goal? Well, we'll just get through.
Yeah, that's what it feels like, isn't it? It feels like they're in their training sessions, they're playing sort of 5 against 11. And they're just working out ways of breaking down these low blocks and packed boxes. Spurs made Liverpool look very good, and I think they're probably going to make Man City look very good. I'm going to go for Raheem Sterling anytime as part of my accumulator. But to talk about Spurs for a second, we've sort of just got back to the tried and tested Jose Mourinho narrative, haven't we? Starts good, we're all very charmed by him, and then he sort of defaults to this defensive, awful stodge football.
It's just gone on like triple speed, hasn't it? Or the thing on your Sky remote where it goes to, is it 36 or whatever, and you can't keep track of where you are in the programme. Because we're much further down the line than we should be. You know, this is 3rd season, Jose, and we've barely had a year of him. You know, the football is terrible. There's an ever lengthening list of players who've fallen out with him. A lot of Spurs fans I know didn't want them to beat West Brom at the weekend. They want a little run of defeats in order to get rid of him. That's how bad it's got.
That's
because
bad.
There's no joy there
God,
anymore.
God.
And we watch football, at least on some level, for a bit of joy, and there's not a lot of that around at Spurs at the moment.
No, well, tune in, enjoy the game. Right, let's move on. Southampton versus Wolves. Southampton off the back of two, abject performances. You could argue that Southampton's loss at Newcastle was as bad, if not worse, than the 9-0, couldn't you? And they've got Wolves this weekend. You don't score many goals. Is this going to be worth watching at all?
The team they put out against Wolves was a lot stronger than the one they could put out against Man United. Against Newcastle was a lot stronger than the one they put out against Man United. And they were playing a Newcastle side who were always there for the taking. Any other manager we would struggle, wouldn't we? We would question it. But because of what happened last year, because of what happened with the Leicester game, and the fact that they did take it a couple of games to bounce back from that, of course you don't just lose 9-0 and then truck up the next weekend and look brilliant.
Of course, it's traumatic. It's a traumatic experience for those players.
So, like I said, any other manager in the league, people would be talking about Hasenhüttl being out of the window, wouldn't they? But with him, because he's been there and done it, you kind of think that it's going to get better again. Wolves are just a dull side at the moment. There's very little interest there at all. Nobody turns the telly on to watch Wolves anymore. So I'm hoping, Southampton being a little bit edgy, a little bit fractious, that might sort of play into this and actually produce some goals in this one.
Yeah, possibly. Wolves are a strange one because you look at some of their individuals and you think, yeah, I'd love to watch this side. I look at Pedro Neto as a new player coming in, looks fantastic. Traore is an entertainer. I like Neves, I like Moutinho. Obviously, Jimenez is out for the time being, but it just they never release the handbrake, essentially. It's never fun to watch.
No, it's very controlled, and that system sort of is very controlled, and they're managed by a goalkeeper. It never quite works, does it?
No, it doesn't. I'm going for under 2.5 goals in this one. I think it's going to be a low-scoring draw, maybe even a 0-0. Fun. Okay, Chelsea versus Newcastle. Thomas Tuchel's come in, and he looks like he's actually got a tune out of some players that maybe were on the fringes beforehand, and it looks like a rejuvenated side.
It does. I don't know how much of this is new manager bounce. I suspect it's more to do with the manager who's coming in from outside and picking players that he looks at in training and thinks, that guy's good, that guy's good. And
yeah.
I think that he's looked at that form. I think what he's done from the outside is probably what you would do from the outside, is you come in and go, right, when was the last time this Chelsea side was any good? And that was that team of Antonio Conte's. So he's almost put together that very similar formation, hasn't he? Bringing Hudson-Odoi into the sort of Victor Moses role on the right-hand side, sort of, playing those two sort of number 10s behind a striker. And it's kind of working so far. The problem he's got is he's got a lot of those players. He's got a lot of those players who want to play in those attacking midfield roles. If you assume that Mason Mount's going to take one of those places, then which he appears to do, then he's got 3 or 4 or 5 players looking for that one place. But I do think, when you start again, there's none of that. Every single player in that squad will be desperate to please him, and that clearly wasn't the case under Frank Lampard. There were obviously divisions had come about, as they often seem to do at Chelsea, probably more than any other club in the country. But Tuchel just seemed to be getting a tune out of them, and I quite enjoyed watching them play. I'm actually, for the first time,
absolutely,
first time in a couple of years, I'm actually watching Chelsea and thinking, oh, this is fun, because you can actually see what the idea is. We've been talking about this with Frank Lampard over the last 2 years. Even when they're playing well and winning games, you're kind of going, I don't know what the idea is, I don't know what the plan is. But you can see it, and it's quite interesting to see it under Tuchel.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, final game we're going to talk about today is Arsenal versus Leeds. Leeds, what else is there to say about Leeds? They're a fun side to watch. They don't want to change their system. And I'm absolutely all about that. I love it. And at Arsenal, what do I always say about Leeds games? Classic football.
It's a proper
British football,
game.
Your Majesty. I love it. Arsenal versus Leeds. Let's have this. Brilliant.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it? Let's have this. That's, there'll be goals. I can guarantee you there'll be goals. Leeds games have goals in the main. They don't change the way they play, and nor should they. And when we look at any newly promoted side to be at this stage of the season and to be so clear of relegation and to have no worries whatsoever about that, all they need to do now is be fun. There's nothing left but to be fun. Yeah. They're not going to finish in the European places. They're not going to finish in relegation battle. Just entertain us now. That's it. That's all we ask.
Just entertain us. Absolutely. Absolutely right. I mean, Arsenal are a strange one as well, because Arsenal, They looked like there was a bit of a resurgence there, and you saw the likes of Saka and Emile Smith-Rowe coming through, and you thought, yes, this is outstanding. And they still, that point still stands. They look like really good, young, hungry players. But they're just so inconsistent. Not those players in individuals, but as a team, so inconsistent. Against Villa, it was poor. It was poor against Villa.
I think you get that a lot when you've got young players trying to forge a team from young players. You do get inconsistency. You know, you don't usually get 19, 20-year-olds producing the same performance every week. And there's clearly a few little problems with that squad, aren't there? You know, they don't really have a left back apart from Kieran Tierney. They've got centre halves who drop rickets. You know, just as soon as we were talking about David Luiz being sort of quite a heartbeat in that team, he then does a massive cock up. You know, there's always a cock up just around the corner with Arsenal, and until that ends, this is where they are, isn't it? This is where they are.
Yeah. My bet for this one is Patrick Bamford to score any time. I'm always very positive about him, or certainly have been this season. I wrote him off, I'll be honest. I wrote him off like a lot of us did. Said he wasn't going to be good enough for this division. He looks like a superb all-round footballer. We talked about him last week with reference to the England squad. Who knows? But again, like you said about Leeds as a general point, just go out there, entertain us for the last 18 games, whatever it is. Yeah, Bamford to score any time. That's my part of my four-way accumulator. If, by the way, you follow my four-way accumulator and miss by just one result, then you still get your money back by way of a free bet. So not a bad yield there from Paddy Power. Sarah, thank you for joining me. That's all we've got time for today. We'll be back same time, same place on Big Weekend, brought to you by Paddy Power. If you want to get in touch with the show, you can email us. It's the editor@football365.com. Right, see you later.
Bye.
Bye.